Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Medaka Kuroiwa is Impervious to My Charms, Season 1, Episode 5. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I love that the intro to this episode, the cold opening, gave me kind of what I wanted. I talked about that maybe episode 1 or 2. It might have been 2 where I saw okay, we're getting might have even been 3, whatever the case may be, when we're getting the intro and it is that thing of oh, look at me, my body, I'm so great, I'm so perfect, and just everyone's smiling, and it's kind of everything's great for Mona. I was hoping we'd get one where it just wasn't so great, and lo and behold, we get that. And she's she doesn't like rainy days because it brings her down, and it's just kind of oh, the day's not going the way she wants it to. But normally rainy days would bring her down, but this one doesn't, because her and Medaka have made progress. And she's slowly but surely it's there, and so now she's riding on cloud 9, and she sees Medaka, and she's oh, hey, and she points out oh, normally he furrows his brows at her, but he's listening so much to the advice from last episode, so it's okay, I gotta have to stop being mean to her. Once again, I can be friendly and not, I can interact with girls without it being anything intimate other than just being platonic and friendly, so. And Mona is taking advantage of this situation because she's oh, all I have to do is push the line to see how far I can go, how it's comfortable. It's okay, so he's uncomfortable with linking arms together, but doesn't mind sharing an umbrella, because it turns out Medaka gave his umbrella away to some cats, who it was a cat and its kittens were in the rain, and he left them the umbrella, and Medaka was almost oh my god, but then she's no, I need to stop it. It's him that needs to fall for me. I'm not. She like I said, she's pushing and testing it. I love every time she's scooching closer, because he's making sure that she's under the umbrella, but enough of his arm is getting wet on the other side. And every time she scoots in closer, he scoots in over more and more until he's about to run into a pole. And she's oh, come on, it's gonna be fine. So, but regardless of it all, as it happens time and time again, even she's being affected by the time they're spending together and being so close to him. It's kind of got her thinking about that stuff. But while they're when they finally make their way to school, they end up running into Asahi, who's playing basketball. She's kind of the superstar on the basketball team. She's the first year. Did not realize they were in different grades. Kind of makes sense. I figured maybe different classes, but did not realize they were different years. It probably already came up about. We've seen the classroom sign. I guess I never paid attention. I don't know if this is the first episode they showed it. They probably showed it in, but I didn't realize they were second years. But either way, when it's all said and done, I love that Asahi is watching, and she gets distracted because Mona drops the umbrella, but it wasn't just Mona. It was specifically her seeing Kuroiwa, and she eats major shit and face plants into the. And I love the basketball comes her way and Mona's way, and Kuroiwa stops it, and it's almost this. Ooh, that was so cool, and that was so chivalrous of him. And then you have Asahi kind of blaming Mona, being yeah, you were here. If you're going to watch, you should be up there in the rafters or whatever with my friend who's watching. Because even her friend's oh, Kuroiwa and Kawai Senpai, oh, they're together? What's going on there? And then Asahi's got a lot of questions and grabs Mona and asks her yo, are you two going out? What's going on together? The fact is, you came with one umbrella. Does that mean you shared it? She's yeah. She's so are you dating? Do you like him? It's no, he didn't have an umbrella, and I was just trying to be nice. And then even Mona's why is she grilling me like this? And then eventually it's kind of wait, is she asking me all that? Does she like Kuroiwa? Because at first for her it's he's so unassuming. There's nothing special about him. There's so for her it's there's no way anyone would like him. Because I think also for her, it's I made that mistake with the whole Tsubomi situation, believing Tsubomi had a thing for him, but it turned out, well, she's more obsessed with you than she is Kuroiwa. But now it's a thing of she wants you both together. She's trying to be your wingman in love, when it comes to love. But yeah, for Mona, it's she's not letting anyone get in the way. It's she's I've made so much progress with Kuroiwa that I know, with Medaka, I know I'm going to get him. I know I'm so close to getting him to completely fall in love with me. It's everything is almost right with the universe again. No one's about to steal my queen bee status. It's almost back to being solidified again. But like what irks her nerves a little bit is that for her it's like she's like no one gives her as much crap as Asahi does, because it's kind of a new experience for her, where it's like, okay, you have Medaka being the only person in general who's never fallen for her charms, and now she has to deal with Asahi, who is the one person who's like, who gives you a lot of pushback, and it, that's why I think her friend works the same way too. But her friend, like, I think her friend placates Mona a lot, where it's like, I see past all the cuteness, but I'm just your friend, versus Asahi, who's kind of a love rival. I wasn't expecting that, simply because I can't remember my full theory, but I had my theories about Asahi's connection to Medaka, but I didn't think it was like a real like love thing. I didn't know she was going to be a potential love rival. That's not the direction I thought that was going to go, but they fully lean into it, because she shows up at their classroom looking for like Medaka, and well, specifically to question Mona again. And Mona wants to shut her because she's like, I can't take the chance. She runs her mouth asking, do I like Medaka in front of Medaka? So, but the problem is we see Asahi like completely change, and even Mona's like, wait, what? Because like it's like, here's this like very stubborn, like very strong personality person, and then she kind of like gets so like kawaii and small and cute when it comes to Medaka. Like she can't even say good morning to him, and it's like, where did that abrasive person I just dealt with go? And it's like, oh, she's a kundere, which I think I've talked about that. Like I've always been familiar with tsunderes, but it was on a few years ago I learned what a yandere. Like I didn't know there were multiple dares, and kunderes, as it says, it's like, right, it's someone who usually has that very cool composure, who then shifts to being affectionate, versus, oh, like I pretend like I don't like you when I like you. And so Mona's kind of the tsundere to some extent, even though she tries to pretend not to be one. It's interesting because she's a tsundere that like pretends not, because like most tsunderes, it's pretty obvious that they're a tsundere, but she puts on such a front about being so cute that no one would recognize that she is a tsundere. So it almost feels weird for her to call out Asahi about being a kundere when she herself is a tsundere. I think that's meant to make it extra funny too. But it's like, yeah, she's like massively blushing. I mean, she turns bright red, and she can't speak or do anything in front of Kuroiwa. And I'm curious where that came from, because one of my theories was like, did they know each other? But none of her responses make it seem like she recognizes or knows Kuroiwa, and he doesn't seem to know her either. Because Mona was like, oh, like, what do you think of those first years? He was like, oh, were their first year? What first year are you talking about? Because he didn't realize anyone in that room was like first years. So even Mona's like, okay, so he doesn't know her. So that's why I'm like, how, like, maybe they do have history and he just doesn't remember her. That was kind of my thinking. Or, I don't know. I think I was even wondering, like, could they be siblings or something? But I don't know what that, I mean, it could just be like a love at first sight. The moment he came to this school, she immediately fell for him. Or, like I said, it might be a thing of, they met a long time ago and they're meeting up again. She remembers, but he doesn't, because it might have been such a small thing. And maybe she was like super in love with him, but that kind of went away. And then the moment he transferred to the school, it all came flooding back, because he might be like her first love type of thing. I don't know. We'll have to wait to see. Like it could just be like the moment he transferred to this school, she fell in love. It could also just be like maybe his interaction with, because once again, we haven't really seen him interact with like other girls. We have to a smaller extent, like smaller interactions with like Tsubomi and some of the girls asking him to cook during the festival or take a break and stuff. But other than that, like we haven't seen him have like obviously the interactions like he has with Mona. He's going out of his way to avoid her. So what if he had that interaction with Mona, and we got the end result that we got, where she's all about trying to charm him, whereas maybe he had some weird opposite effect of him trying to push maybe Asahi away, like ended up making her fall for him, which, I mean, Mona's kind of going down that route for Medaka already, but I'm curious, like, what the inciting incident that led to her falling for him type of thing. And she's talking to her friend about him, being like, well, Mona says she doesn't like him and they're not dating. And her friend's like, oh, cool, that means it kind of frees the pave way for you to kind of like, make a landing on that whole situation. And they're overhearing the boys talk about like, oh yeah, like here's this picture of a woman, and it's like, yeah, it's even sexier than the nude picture. And it's just like, oh, look at all these guys, they're so gross. But like you could tell, like I was like, she's gonna take something from that, and she applies it later on, because Obviously, Medaka later on has to clean up the basketballs by himself because he lost a bet to his friends. And Mona wants to help. And it's like, oh, I could help you with your basketball form. And using that to like push on him. And she's like, I don't even know if this is working. It's like, oh, she can't see his face because of the way he's turned. But it's like, it's massively working. He's like, no, Mona's just trying to help me out. Mona's just trying to help me out. Don't read too much into it. Don't read too much into it. But it's like, her boobs are pressing against him. And she was like, pressing like she was purposely putting the basketball a certain way to kind of accentuate her boobs, even just doing everything she can. And then Asahi shows up being like, what's going on here? And then she's like, I knew it. You do like him. It's like, no, I don't. That's not what's going on here. I'm just helping him with his basketball form. And so Asahi's like, well, fine. You want to help? I'll do it too. And she planks and she's like, oh, you should do the same thing. And she shows her cleavage to him and he starts freaking out. And then Mona's like, what's with that reaction? She sees it and she's like, what? Oh, that's how she wants to play this? And then she proceeds to plank as well to show off her cleavage. And then Medaka was so overwhelmed, he starts screaming. He scurried back like a bug. Like, it was just the way he scurried back on like all fours trying to get away from that situation. He ran for his life, But both Asahi and Medaka, and Mona are both like shook by what they did. They like, I went too far. I get it. I got too amped about it, but I crossed the line with that. I shouldn't have gone that far. Because it was even this point where earlier in the episode, Asahi was like, okay, I forgot what the exact wording was, but basically like, I won't let you win type of thing. And Mona was like, did she just declare war on me? It's like, yeah. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm assuming like this is going to continue throughout, but this particular part of the arc is probably going to conclude. It's probably going to be like a two-parter, just like 3 and 4 were. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go from here in the aftermath of this. I wonder if all 3 of them are going to get sick, because like Medaka was getting a little sick this episode, sneezing and stuff, and then Mona's running in the rain at the end of the episode. Especially considering they're also in their gym clothes too. We'll see if all 3 of them end up getting sick or something, or where that storyline goes. But I'm excited to see where that ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.